What we're doing today is an end of the season squash casserole. We're going to do it all in cast iron. What you're going to need for this recipe is about 2 pounds of squash. In my case, I had some leftover zucchini and some yellow crookneck and a couple of scallops summer squash. You're going to need half a cup of coarse chopped carrots, also from my garden in this case. Now that's a carrot. You're also going to need a 1/4 cup of butter, 1 large onion. Yellow's great, whatever you have around is good. 2 or 3 cloves of garlic minced. You're going to need a 1.25 cups of saltine crackers, or Ritz crackers. Of course, Ritz are the best because they have butter in them. And they're going to be needed to be placed in a plastic bag and crunched up into crumbs. You're going to need a 1/2 cup of grated mild to medium cheddar cheese, some hot pepper sauce. Lots of people like Tabasco. My preference is Tapatio sauce, and salt and pepper, of course. And then you're going to need 2 eggs slightly beaten. Right now what we did is we cut up the squash. We cut the squash into quarters lengthwise and then into like 1/2 inch slices, and we cut up the carrots into a coarse chop. We placed them in my Dutch oven here, and we covered them just to covering with water, and then we added some salt to that. What we're going to do is bring this to a boil, and while we're doing that, we're going to cut up the onions and garlic and saute them in some butter, and that's what we'll do next. Alright, the squash is now up to a boil, so what we're going to do is cover it and let it simmer for 20 minutes so that everything gets all nice and soft. Now that the squash is boiling, we're going to put our 1/4 cup of butter in this frying pan on the barbecue, and then we're going to add the onions and saute them until they're translucent. Then we will add, and that's 1 whole onion, and then we're going to add about 3 cloves of chopped garlic in there after the onions are translucent. Saute them all up until they're, as my friend Consuelo says, until they're happy. Now the butter's all nice and melted and toasty in that pan, so I'm going to go ahead and throw the onions in there and get them sauteing. Smells good already. Now the onions are translucent, as you can see, so we'll go ahead and add the garlic. Stir that in there and cook it for a few more minutes, and we'll get our crackers ready. I think we'll have Frank do that part. Back in just a sec. These look great now, so what we're going to do is move them to a plate, and then we're going to add a little bit more butter and toast some of our breadcrumbs. We've removed the sauteed onions and garlic onto a plate here, and now we're going to add some more butter back into that same pan. This is about a tablespoon of butter. Put that right in the pan. And then I put some crackers, enough to make a 1.25 cups of crushed crackers, into a Ziploc bag, and I had Frank crush it up for me. He did a fabulous job. I'm taking a 1/2 cup of those crackers here. Now I'm going to throw them in the pan with the butter. Stir them around here. At this point, the crumbs are going to absorb the butter. They'll get a little bit toasty and crispy. And then we'll sprinkle those across the top of our casserole when we're baking it, and then it'll give an extra crust to the top of the casserole. Now the cracker crumbs are nice and golden, so I'm going to transfer them to a plate, and then we'll prepare the rest of the dish. Here's the cracker crumbs all brown and toasty. What I'm going to do now is go in and drain the squash that's been boiling for 20 minutes to make them tender. I'm going to drain that and put it into a mixing bowl and bring it out so we can add the other ingredients. And we'll see you soon. Look how beautiful the squash and carrots turned out. Now this is where we pull it all together. We'll add the sauteed garlic and onions. And the rest of the breadcrumbs, not the toasted ones, these are the ones that are not toasted. And I have some extra cheese here because we need about a half a cup to put in this mix, and then I like to put some on top underneath the cracker crumbs as well. So we'll take precise measurements here, about a half a cup. And then this time we're going to use the habanero hot sauce. I like this one or the Tapatio, either one. Of course, if you use a habanero, you need to use less of it because it is a little bit spicier. So we'll put some of that in there. A little extra, don't tell Frank. And these are the parsley scrambled eggs here. Put those in there. And then a little bit of salt and pepper. And as you can see, this is my favorite pepper mill, and it is freshly ground pepper, which I can't do while I'm holding the camera. So I'm going to turn the camera off and grind my pepper, and then I'm going to mix up the mix and I'll show it to you at the end. Now we've oiled the Dutch oven. This is the one without the legs. We've oiled it and put our squash mixture in there. So I'm going to top it with some of the cheese, however much you like. And we'll put the breadcrumbs on it. I think I'll just pick that up and sprinkle it around. A little extra crunch on there. In the case of our squash casserole, since we're doing it in an actual Dutch oven without the legs, what we're going to do is put some coals down and then put the trivet over it so that we can get the Dutch oven up off the coals and still be able to cook it. We have our hot coals here. There are 8 or 9 of them. We'll put them in a checkerboard pattern. Ish. Something like that. Put the trivet over the top. Set the camp stove over the top. And since we don't have a lid on it, we won't be able to put as many coals on it, but I can still put some on there. Look how nice and hot those coals are. That's beautiful. Since we can't put as many on, we might get the hot ones. Just place as many as you can on it. I bet we can get a few more on there. Once again, you put more on the top than on the bottom because you don't want the bottom to burn to the pan. So, in about 10 or 15 minutes, we'll come back and turn the lid a quarter of a turn and the pot a quarter of a turn. Alright, it's been about 10 minutes, so we will do a quarter of a turn and a quarter of a turn to try to keep it cooking evenly and not sticking. Oop. Whole pot turned that time, so that was a quarter of a turn on the pot. Quarter turn on the lid. Put that back up there. That would be the joy of gloves. Alright, it's been about 20 minutes now, so we're going to turn it again, and then we'll pull it off the next time. Quarter turn. Quarter turn. The key is to keep the ashes out of the food. That's why it's really better to have the lip on the lid. I took all the charcoal off the lid to avoid getting it in the casserole, so we'll see what it looks like. Look at that. Bubbly. It looks fabulous. Hard to tell in the dark what it looks like. It looks fabulous and smells fabulous.